Welcome to CRM Audio. I'm Joel Lindstrom, and I'm joined with a whole slew of people here today because we're all excited because we're getting ready for UG Summit as well as Extreme 365 in Orlando coming up next week. So with us, we have George Doubinski, President
I'm
Developer.
very excited. Yeah, very
Nick
excited.
Doelman.
Hey, guys.
Who else do we have? We have LaBar.
Hello.
We have Sara Lagerquist.
Hello.
Jonas Rapp.
Hi there.
And last but not least, Jim. Jim, you there?
Good morning.
So I was confused because Jim and I spoke at a conference last week, and we were speaking on Teams, and so he joined my Teams meeting, and his name wasn't. What was your name, Jim, on the conference? I can't remember.
It was the infamous Alan Steiner.
So who invited Alan Steiner? Then I realized he was using my demo environment, and Alan Steiner was the persona there. So why we're here is we wanted to talk about kind of what we're going to be doing at these conferences, and not just promote our sessions. We will be saying, what our session's about, but also maybe giving a little preview. So hopefully, if you're not able to go to the conference, you can still learn something from this episode. So let's start with George, because it's very early in the morning in Australia where George is, and we think he may doze off during this podcast.
Yeah, I may be in Australia.
All right, so George, what are you going to be doing next week at UG Summit?
Okay, so I'm actually not doing any sessions during the conference itself. I may join one or two panels, which just require a big mouth and not a lot of planning. But we're doing, and when I say we, I'm talking about a few people here. So, first of all, on Sunday, no, not on Sunday, on Monday, we kicking off, me and Nick, we're kicking off with the Power Apps portals. So we kind of rebranding, redoing all the portals as we know it, and pitching them.
Wait! I'm confused. You said you aren't doing any sessions, but you and Nick are doing.
That's not a
portals.
session.
You could be out in the parking lot or something.
Well, we're doing an academy class, but it could get out to the parking lot by the end of the day. But yeah, like George and I, we're teaming up. It's like the Avengers, individually, we're fighting portals and teaming up to deliver a really cool portal in a day class. So if you've been reading about Power Apps portals and you're kind of like, okay, what's this all about? What do I do? Where do I start? I think there's still room available, right, George? They can sign up.
Yeah, I mean, you can sign up. It's a paid exercise, so yeah. It's. I think by now we're kind of ready to say that if you don't get working portal by the end of the day, your money back. I don't think we'll go that. Ooh, I knew Nick was gonna cringe at that one. Anyway, so,
is that money in Australian dollars or Canadian dollars?
Oh, they're about the same. What is it, like 1,000 Canadian Australian dollars to 1 US penny or something like this these days?
Thereabouts. Yeah, you're bringing Tim Tams, right, George, for the students?
Oh, I'm glad you reminded. Yes, I will bring. I'll make a note right now. Team Tams for students. That's a good idea. Team Tams. That's the way to get 5 stars reviews, guys. If you didn't know that already, Team Tams for students. Done. Anyway, so we're doing that, and on Tuesday, I'm spending half a day talking about moving from Dynamics 365 to Power Platform or Power Apps using license-driven development.
Okay, so for people who aren't going to be at the conference, what will give us some tips that you're going to share? Just a little preview.
Well, the idea is that a long time ago, license was kind of an afterthought. You have, I don't know, 500 users times whatever license you need, sales or customer service. Here's your license. Maybe if you got 1,000 users, you talk to your rep, you negotiate better rate, but it's fixed. You lock it down for 3 or 5 years enterprise agreement. If you're a small operator, you don't lock this rate, but you kind of know what you're spending, right? So once you know this cost, it's going to be sunk cost over the time, and you sort of accept it. Then you go ahead and you build whatever you build. You take Dynamics 365 Sales or Dynamics 365 Customer Service or all of it or Field Service, and you start building. You extend it, you customize it, and so on and so forth, right? So, and we're talking about, these days, we're talking about $95 US to start with, plus what's for each additional one? Is it $20 or?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So you're talking about, say, you've got customer service, $95, then you decide to add field service, so that's another $20 per user. So it's kind of $115, give or take, per user, and so on. But then you realize that not all of your users are using features. Some of users may not even use any of the restricted entities, so they don't care about cases or something like this. Say one of the customers we built in the past was all about security card management and hot desk management, right? It was part of overall solution, but some of the users, all they were dealing with was kind of hot desking for the contacts and so on, right? So Nick, would you switch your phone? Would you switch your mic off and stop moving
Gus
around?
Is sneaking up on him or something.
No, I was checking my calendar. I'll go on mute.
Yeah. Good.
So basically, you're telling people how to dump their Dynamics licenses, right?
No, not quite. I mean, you still have a room for Dynamics, but if you have a subset of users who say don't use customer service or sales, it's a vertical solution specific to a company, then you can definitely craft an app or 2 or 3 or 5 task-based, sort of very purposely built apps that do have one very specific task for a user or a number of tasks, but they're built around kind of custom entities. So in this situation, you can say, hey, look, I can move those users to a $10 license or maybe a $40 license if they need a number of apps to move around. So and then you realize that perhaps your cases don't need to be that complicated. You don't need SLAs and so forth. So maybe you consider, implement ticketing system, which is kind of much simpler than cases. You don't need cases as such. So you can see how you can bring down the licensing costs and create streamlined system just specifically tailored to your business. So that's kind of one side of the story. The other side is you have to get off your bum and move to unified interface, and a lot of people haven't done so. So this is kind of second part of the story where we walk through what are the gotchas, how to move to unified interface, and you can move the whole lot to unified interface, kind of plunge into the pool, or you can consider building those little apps and move sort of things out one by one and building better interface that perhaps use custom controls, better visualizations, and so on and so forth. And I hope that I will get joined for an hour or so by the champion of license-driven development, none other than Steve Mordew, who said that he's going to pop in and talk the heck out of Rapid Start and Rapid Start CRM, which is effectively what he's done. He's built a sales, was it customer service, Rapid Start CRM? Yeah, I think customer service. But completely based on custom entities and effectively driven by the licensing costs. That's how it's all started, but ended up as much simpler solution for smaller businesses who want out of the box. They don't need analytics. They don't need complexity. They don't need AI. They don't know they don't need AI, or they don't know they need AI. Whichever way you're talking about it, they may not want all those features and all those goodness that come with the fully fledged customer service. They don't want USD and so on. So that allows you to to create some compact solutions like apps-driven solutions, and at the same time, bring your licensing costs down. So that's the kind of, in a nutshell, what we're going to talk about.
Okay, great.
So
great.
There's still room available. So on Tuesday, it's Tuesday afternoon. So for those of you who listen and say, "Oh, I really don't know how to spend my Tuesday afternoon. I'm kind of wandering around and have nothing better to do," come in. It's 4 hours. There's no. We're gonna do some labs. And we're going to talk, and it's going to be a Q&A. It's a small class, so we're going to do a lot of Q&A. And perhaps if you bring your scenario, we can kind of pull it apart and within the class and, dissect it and give you a good advice what to do and what not to do.
Well, I would go, but I'm not getting in until Wednesday, so unfortunately I'll miss it. But sounds interesting.
Oh, okay. Well, since I'm here... we gotta go on to other people. We got a whole room full of people, George. Hold on. The last one. Hold on. Is it our podcast or is it those people podcast? Okay. So if you're a developer and you go to all the sessions of Daryl's and Jason Latimer and you still don't feel that you did get enough of the developer stuff, I'm joining actually David Yak, who's going to be in Toronto on 21st and 22nd. We're running another bad masterclass. And we literally, I kid you not, we've got like a couple spots left. Canadians love to learn. I don't know what is it about. Canadians love them dearly for that, right? So they love to learn. We had sold out class in Toronto last year. We still have a couple spots left. So if you're a developer and you're kind of confused by Wave 2, what does it mean? What is the goodness is there? Come in. We'll walk you through. We'll show you all the latest, greatest, coolest stuff. And you're going to be a better developer after that.
Sounds good. You can go back to sleep now, George.
Okay.
Can I go? Because I got to go in a few minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So if some mysterious guy walks up to you into the parking lot and says, "Hey, let me tell you about portals," it's probably either George or Nick. So, Nick, what's going on?
Not too much. I'd have to second what George said about the bad master class. I went last year and it was awesome. I mean, the reason why my head is so big is because all the knowledge I got from George and David in those 2 days. Like my head was small before, so definitely
go then.
Yeah. So anyway,
Nick is not going because he's afraid his head is going to explode after.
Exactly. With all the more stuff, it's like my head can't take it anymore. So I'm not going. But yeah, definitely, if you have the opportunity, do it. It'll be worth every penny. My former employer, I've told them to send my old team to go. So I think a few people are going. But anyways, I got a jet soon, so I'm gonna go really pretty quick. I'm not gonna take 21 minutes like some people. So along with doing the portals class on Monday, on Thursday morning, bright and early, I'm going to be talking about embedding Canvas apps and model-driven forms with the purposes of replacing dialogues. So now that the doomsday clock has started to tick about for people on the classic interface to move to the new unified interface, that in itself is a bit of a project to refactor some of those forms and views. But the big issue that comes up is dialogues aren't actually supported on the new unified interface. I know there's some hacks and stuff around to get them going, but for the most part, you're going to want to take a look at those dialogues and find another solution. I had a project earlier this year, and we kind of ran into that as I was moving them over to the unified interface. They came to me and said, you know what, the dialogues that you created to do some certain tasks weren't working correctly. And I looked and it's like, well, sure enough. So I had to kind of scramble. What I did was I created some Canvas app. I embedded that on a form, and the user interface was already, 10 times better than what they were using, even with dialogues. As we all know, dialogues are a bit ugly, but they do the work. So this is one way. I will talk about some other strategies that I've heard from the community about using flows, about using business processes. So hopefully people that will be there will get some of those good tips and tips to, help with their projects as they go forward over this upcoming challenging year as we're converting things over. It is one of the recorded sessions, so I believe if you're not going, I'm guessing there'll be some package post-conference that you'll be able to get that. And the other thing I'll probably do my 15-minute little speech at the start about what is the Power Platform, and that's really from a dynamic CRM perspective. I find I'm still talking to a lot of people in the community that are still very much in that dynamic CRM world, customers, other partners, even consultants that don't quite get what does this whole Power Platform mean? Like, CDS and Flow, these are kind of scary things. Do I need to start learning them? So I will be pitching a little bit of what the whole story is behind that. And I think I found that story I put together helps people from that background get a context of what the Power Platform is, and even better, how it can help them out with their projects. So definitely looking forward to seeing folks in Orlando. But if you can't make it to Orlando, still, completely check out my blog, other podcasts, and there's plenty of other ways to get this information through the community.
So question for you, Mr. Doelman. So when you replace a dialogue with a Canvas app, I've done that myself, but one thing that I haven't wrapped my brain around fully is a lot of times dialogues would appear when you wanted them to, or not always be visible. How do you have that same effect with an embedded Canvas app? Because if I don't want I have a dialogue to create a case at a certain point that pops up or something, or I push the button. How do you do that with an embedded Canvas app?
Oh, great question, Joel. So probably what I would do is I'd probably employ a little bit of JavaScript, which I know is kind of the, more the moving up from that lower code to the mid code. But then on this particular example, I had all my Canvas app embedded on a separate tab, and that tab only becomes visible when it's required as part of that process.
Got it. Okay. That's cool.
It's very cool. Definitely looking. Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna pass the baton now on because I think you probably got a whole crew of people behind me.
All right, Jim Novak. Jim, what are you going to be doing next week?
I got 2 sessions that I'm doing, and so I'm pretty excited. It's my first time at Summit. So I've got my first time being there, and then also my first time speaking. So I have one session on building XRM Toolbox tools, and another session on portals, working with liquid templates. The XRM Toolbox tools session is what it sounds like. It's basically walking through the required components on if you want to, it's more developer focused, but it should be open to non-developers to get an idea for building an XRM Toolbox tool, basically the moving parts. If you're writing some code, you have an idea for one, and we go through building an example one. Not quite as brave as Jonas in his session of building one from scratch on the fly, but it should give you the general idea of what are the moving parts behind the WinForm control, the underlying code that handed to you by essentially the XRM Toolbox SDK. And then we walk through a relatively simple one, and I use some tools to build a tool. So it's kind of a fun session. The other one is working with liquid templates and portals. I've been working on portals for the last couple of years on my active projects, and Liquid over this past project was basically a lifesaver. So I try to dive into a little bit of history, where it comes from. It's an open source tool that Microsoft leverages, language that Microsoft embeds into portals. We talk a little bit about where it comes from, some of the major language components, like if you're diving into it, learning about it, what are the major parts of the language that you'll be using, and then go through some examples. And then we go in and we build out some very simple components using liquid templates in a sample portal. So other than that, I'm going to be running around trying to attend some sessions. I'm going to be sitting with Daryl on his what's the title for it, Daryl?
You actually are sitting on 2 of my sessions.
So is your Liquid session for somebody who already is somewhat familiar with it, or can somebody who has never touched it before benefit from your session?
No, it's meant for if you've never touched it. So it assumes some familiarity with portals, but not necessarily Liquid. So when I started looking into one of the challenges I faced, and I've been writing some posts about this, George and Nick can talk to it, is the documentation is pretty solid for some of it. but there's some, because it's an open source language it was originally developed by Shopify. Like some of the documentation.
Okay, one more time. Anyone mentions that Liquid was developed by Shopify, I'm gonna smack them.
Okay, well, you can smack me next week.
Okay, that's a deal.
So anyway, it's basically meant to give you some background on where it comes from, some of the stuff that's missing from Microsoft's documentation, and then talking about Microsoft's extensions. So it's meant for somebody who's familiar with portals and now needs to dive into extending it a bit more than what they can do with configuration.
Yeah, cool. So might check that out. What day is that?
Thursday.
Oh, well, I'll be there for that. All right. Sara Lagerquist, what are you going to be talking about?
I have two sessions. So one is about how to write good requirements. I'm really passionate about the requirement part of projects. So it's a top 10 session, actually.
And is that for traditional kind of requirements, or do other things like user stories apply to?
So mainly focus is actually user stories, but also talking about requirements from different angles. Like you usually hear about the typing of functional and non-functional requirements. I'm also going to talk a bit about the different kinds where you divide it into normal, expected, and sensational requirements, and how to think about that.
Okay. And we all like sensational projects,
Is
right?
it some kind of translation from Swedish, or is that the real term that you get?
Is that not an English word?
No, that's great.
I like the word. And finally, non-developer session. Hooray.
Well,
people tend to forget
George never gets very excited, so he's never actually hit sensational level.
Everything I present is sensational. So I never go down.
I like those. I like the terms that could be either good or bad. Like, actually, like tremendous could be tremendously good or tremendously bad. And so, how's your day been? It's been tremendous.
Oh, great!
So we should just talk about tremendous requirements instead.
Yes, exactly.
Now, looking forward. Yeah, absolutely. Non-developer session. Finally, thank you.
Well, I'm not a developer in that sense. I'm a functional developer.
But that's cool. It's people tend to forget it's CRM user group. So,
we put the fun in functional developers.
Oh, yeah. Please, Joe.
Well, I'm a former user, so I usually come from that perspective. So that's what got me into this.
Okay.
Yeah, and my second session is about the scheduling feature of Dynamics, how to use it in sales scenarios. And I got the best time for that Friday at 2:30. Yay!
Which scheduling functionality are you using? Actually, resource scheduling, or are you using other types of scheduling?
No, the URS one that I'm not allowed to call URS because it's called the scheduling feature.
Okay, well that's cool. I like and Ben Vollmer on Power Platform 24 did a session about using scheduling for other purposes. And I thought it was really, really fascinating. And I learned from that you can now install it without installing field service or project service first. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
So, hold on. So Ben Vollmer was the one who was into my ear literally like 2 months ago saying installing scheduling without field service or PSA, never going to happen, said Ben.
Well, it comes with customer service.
You do have to have a Dynamics license. You can't do it with you can't follow what you're going to learn in George's session about dumping your Dynamics licenses and then go install scheduling.
I never said dump your Dynamics license. I said be smart about them. Okay. But,
so
Sarah, can I make a suggestion that the demo you do, you help people to schedule their departures so they still can make your session and catch their flight? Because because that's 2:30. That's lots of people start leaving. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, when everyone is super tired, people already have their flight books. So the last session of the last day.
I've
No,
had that
plan it
session
as
before.
a kickoff or happy hour. That's the way you frame it.
Oh, like that.
Bring beer.
Actually, the Friday afternoon sessions sometimes are the best because, well, you might not have as many people. The people who are there are kind of the most dedicated, and they'll want to have long conversations and want to ask a lot of questions. Usually, they're the ones that are really dedicated to be there. So, Sarah, since not everybody listening is going to be able to be at the conference, you have to give at least one of your tips for requirements.
Okay, for requirements, I would say don't forget the negative requirements that you usually forget when you gather your requirements.
Is that the George's requirements to shock people who don't do things that are like the way they should be, or what's a negative requirement?
A negative requirement is what you're not supposed to be able to do in the system.
Okay. Like what? Give me an example.
So security, for example. So
Okay.
when this happens, you're not supposed to take a case from another person. Stuff like that.
Okay.
They are usually missed.
I've got the easy solution for those requirements.
Is that a no-code, low-code solution, George?
Oh, it's very low code. It's a baseball bat in the corner. It's codeless.
Right.
Well, does it involve smacking people?
We don't call it that way. Don't resort to violence.
All right,
Baseball in the
Daryl, are you
bat
back
in the
with
corner
us?
is enough.
Daryl LaBar, are you still with us?
He's busily trying to fix his microphone.
Okay, well let's go to Jonas then. Jonas,
Yeah.
what are you going to be talking about?
So, well, to start with, this is my first time both attending and speaking at any of the summits. And so I got 3 sessions, one at Extreme. I've been doing a few with Extreme previously, and then one at UG Summit, and finally one at Power Platform Summit. So I've got all the 3 conferences covered here. And I'm starting on Tuesday with, well, basically what Jim is doing. We're going to create an external toolbox tool. And in this session, it's really meant to sort of inspire and to show people that it's not that hard to get started. And I've been doing this one a couple of times, and I think the general reaction to it is, it wasn't that hard. Why haven't I started yet? So we'll go through the project template, and it will be a lot of coding, about 3 PowerPoint slides. Then I will kill that, and we will go straight into Visual Studio. So that will be fun. Tuesday, 10:45. Then on Thursday, I have a session. They actually put me in a room that takes more than 450 people, and I'm kind of intimidated by this, but that could be fun as well. I'm going to talk about Canvas apps. It's finally time to start using them. It's time to jump on the Canvas app bandwagon. So I think it'll be the first time I don't do a demo. I don't do any live coding or anything. I actually only have PowerPoint. But we'll go through some of the misconceptions or the bad reputation Canvas apps got from the beginning, from its early days, and see how it's improved, why it's finally time to actually start using them for real. Not just through those, the early adopters. We saw the samples from Heathrow and Virgin and P&G, and that Microsoft have been showing off. I'm going to actually encourage people to start using them for real.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, give us a little taste of what you're going to talk about. What are some of the reasons why Canvas apps you feel are now ready for people to adopt?
Yeah, I think maybe the primary reason for me, as I've been working a lot around the ALM story of Dynamics implementations, and I think that's the major part now, that you can actually include them in solutions. You can ship them in a sort of the delivery vessel that was designed for the platform, and it actually works now as well. I think that's a primary reason that you can now do it, and also you can check them in the solution packager, and those tools are prepared or actually working with these stuff. So I'd say that's the main thing.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
You can even unpack them now too, can't you?
Yes, you can if you use Daryl's highly unsupported tool.
There's no problem unpacking it, packing it back together. You may I don't know. So far it's worked for me, but
Yeah.
So Daryl, let me ask you a question. Have you actually written many Canvas apps, or do you just pack them and unpack them?
I have written from scratch just a few, but I got transitioned a couple weeks ago over at my client to a mammoth canvas app with probably 5,000 lines of code packed in 15 or 14 different screens. And so it was
Here goes my low code.
Yeah.
5,000.
Yep.
All right.
Who let Daryl into Canvas?
All right. So if somebody who creates Canvas apps is called a maker, what's the guy who packs and unpacks them called?
Breaker.
Daryl?
The breaker.
Smart.
All right. Yeah. All right. So Daryl, since you're already talking, what and you apparently got your microphone working. What are you going to be doing next week at UG Summit?
So you didn't want my third session? I shouldn't say anything.
Oh,
about that.
no, sorry, Jonas. I thought that
No,
3 was enough for anybody. I thought you reached your quota.
Well, actually, I mean, if Sarah's got the last session of the last day, I've got the second last one at 1:15 on Friday. I'm going to dive deeper into Canvas apps and show how to make them responsive. You know, when you design them now, you get to select if should it be phone layout, portrait, landscape, and so on. And I will do one of these 5 slides and then into the development or Canvas Studio to start building an app and seeing how you can actually go about very practical hands-on session to make it respond to the orientation and size of the canvas you have at your disposal in the app.
Nice.
And the session is called Jonas
five steps
Rapp.
to create top power apps for any device. I needed to add the 5 steps or something somewhere.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. So and that's all. You only have 4.
No, this was 3. But then also I'm I'm participating with Daryl and Jim on the create a plugin with unit test from scratch. And then I know Jim invited me to his Sextern Toolbox tool creation session, and there will probably be a few panels or so as well. So I think I'll have a busy week.
Yeah, that's great. And so George, sounds like we have a lot of first-time summit attendees here. So is there some kind of initiation that we need to put them through? I mean, I think, has anybody told them they need to wear formal attire and bring gifts to all the old timers?
No, I thought we keep it very simple. They pay for all the drinks. That's been going on for years. Sarah,
Right.
you excuse. Jonas can pay for all of.
Don't excuse me. I'm the
LaBar.
biggest drinker.
Well, that's why we bring Gustav. He's not a big drinker, but he has the credit card.
They'll buy it and expense it.
Yep.
Mr. LaBar, we've already heard bits and pieces of what you're going to be doing, but
Yes.
what will you be doing next week?
Yeah, so I've got a busy schedule. On Monday, actually, I'm going to be doing a full day-long session on unit testing for developers using the XRM unit test platform. So really excited about that. There's still plenty of room for that too. If someone wants to come in and join that and sign up for it and just show up Monday morning, I'm sure as you bring the right credit card, they'll be happy to let you in. And then Thursday is when I do the creating a plugin from scratch with unit tests. I have never done this one before, so it'll be kind of interesting. And I'll have Jonas and Jim in there either making fun of me in the areas where I'm trying to think or asking questions.
So hold on. Let me get this straight. So on Monday you teach in class, and on Thursday you admit you never done this before and you're doing it.
I've never done this
work?
Session before. I never tried to do a session live.
I thought you never built a plugin before and you're teaching it on Monday.
George, you need to go to bed. Go to bed.
No.
Then I also have the Ask the Experts CRM Developer Edition on Thursday at 4:15.
Was it
so that one should be good.
The expert?
Ask. Sorry.
Okay.
Ask the Experts. The funny part is it's an all-star MVP cast. The only developer on the cast that is not like a vice president or a president is Andrew Batinko. He's the only one that doesn't have that type of title. So it's an impressive array of people in there. So that one should be great. And then I'm also going to be doing a session with Gus showing off one of my tools for the top free tools for CRM admins. So that one's a pretty standard session. And then finally, so that's the second to last session on Friday. And then I also had the last session on Friday. So I do the two last sessions of the whole conference. And that I will be doing a non-developer session called Deep Dive into Model-Driven Forms, JavaScript for non-developers. So this is really for the business analyst to be able to have confidence to know what you can do with the JS in forms when they're trying to design what they want the actual app to do or form to do, the model-driven form. So that's it.
Okay, so you need to share at least one or two tips from your sessions so that people listening who aren't going to be there can get some value out of this podcast.
Okay. All right. So for the plugin unit test from scratch, that is primarily just utilizing the Visual Studio Solution Builder. It comes with our Solution Accelerator that is a plugin for the XM Toolbox. So if you are going to miss that session, go ahead and download that tool and play around with that, and that'll help you get started with your development. Ask the experts. You just got to be there for that one. I can't help you with that one. And same thing, the 10 free tools. But for the model-driven forms, really it's understanding. There is actually a great cheat sheet. I think that was from CRM 2015 that lists all the functions, the JavaScript functions, and they're grouped into different areas that makes a lot of sense when you're trying to figure out what you can do or not do. So if you can't join that session, going and finding that CRM 2015 JavaScript cheat sheet actually is a big help if you still need to be able to do that kind of stuff. So
isn't the biggest tip though, do not use JavaScript?
See, that would be bad from my sense from an employability standard, but no, yeah, I mean, yes, the biggest tip is to know when to use it and not use it. I'd say that. So not using it is not the biggest tip because there are things that you'd like to do with it. The business would like to do that requires that. But no, so I get your jab. I'll jab you back.
All right. Well, I guess that leaves me. So I'm going to be doing several sessions. On Wednesday at 2, ADM 15, improve your Dynamics 365 data quality with Power Apps and Flow. I'm doing that with my fellow members of the Hitachi MVP Army, Andrew Butenko and Matt Whitteman, and we're going to be showing some examples about how, you might think that the out-of-the-box data quality tools are either non-existent or very limited. I'm not going to disparage them too badly. But when you're a data administrator and trying to keep your system clean, it can be very frustrating, especially like duplicate detection can only work with 12 records at a time. And so we're going to show you how you can use things like Flow to identify records that are dirty or need to be updated, Canvas apps embedded to find duplicates, even fuzzy matching, and then actually do things like bulk merge records. So that's going to be exciting. We'll mention that Wednesday evening that we have the Hitachi MVP Army has enrolled in the Mark Smith Pub Trivia for Power Platform. So myself, Sean Tabor, Matt Whitteman, and Sukrut Parab, our newest member, will be taking on the competition to see how we do there. Unfortunately, Andrew could not be there because he's in another session at that time. So hopefully there won't be too many developer questions. And then on Friday, I am participating in a session at 10:45, tips to help drive an aggressive CRM roadmap at your organization. This is not for deploying CRM for aggressive people. This is about large deployments and tips for how to do this. It's more of a discussion session than a presentation. And then Friday morning, we have the 10th annual Hitachi Solutions 50 Tips in 50 Minutes session, and we are promising all new tips this year. Some of them were getting a little bit dated, so we're working on updating those, so that should be fun as well. And then I'm flying home. So unfortunately, I won't be there for your Jonas and Sarah, I won't be there for your late afternoon Friday sessions.
What?
You wouldn't understand them anyway.
Right. So it should be fun. It's been interesting preparing for the data quality one. I've had some ideas that weren't quite possible, but then some things that came together quite nicely. So you will just have to come and see how you can improve your data quality with the Power App and Flow.
Again, Joe, reversing the table, so you have to give people the sample of the dirtiest data you ever come across.
I mean, every project has dirty data. I can't think of one. I mean, I can think of a lot of insurance companies or credit union type deployments that have merged multiple core systems. I mean, I've seen 20 records for the same person that have different accounts. And, a lot of times if it's just Dynamics, you can't really do anything about that because without doing a full MDM solution to clean up the core data. But what you can do, you kind of have to look at what you can control, and what you can control is data coming in, users creating things, importing things, or web forms coming in, making sure that you have somebody whose job it is to own data quality. Too many people don't even think that's something they need to do, and then things get all messy. So it should be fun. I'm excited to see all the new people coming. That shows a lot of enthusiasm. And I think I said before on another podcast that I was on the steering committee for the sales and marketing track, and I've never seen so many submissions, and so many submissions from people who were first timers or people who hadn't spoken before. So just the energy going into it is pretty good. So it should be fun. So I'll have fun next week and get to see each other in person. Good to see other MVPs before MVP Summit.
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. And as a parting thought, crmtipoftheday.com/masterclass. I forgot that people need to go somewhere to do it. And where can people find the sessions? I mean, would be a good idea if all of you guys send your session numbers to Joel and he can add them into podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No.
I mean, you can go to na.usergroupsummit.com and search the schedule for our names, but there's so many sessions there that so send me your session numbers and links, and I will put them in the show notes.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you all next week.
See you guys. Bye.